Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Learning Podcast, the place where you improve your English step by step in a simple, natural, and confident way. My name is Jason, and as always, I'm very excited to spend this time with you today because we are going to talk about something that can completely change the way you learn English and the way you speak English every single day.
And I'm Julia, and today's topic is honestly one of the most important topics for every English learner around the world, because so many people study English for months or even years, but they still feel nervous, slow, or stuck when they try to speak. Maybe you understand grammar, maybe you know a lot of vocabulary, but when it's time to speak, your brain suddenly freezes. If that sounds familiar, don't worry, because today we are going to help you understand why that happens and how you can fix it.
Exactly. Today's episode is called Train Your Brain for English Fluency, and we're going to show you that speaking English fluently is not only about memorizing words or studying grammar rules. Real fluency begins in your brain. The way you think, the way you practice, and the way you train your mind every day can make a huge difference in your English speaking journey.
In this episode, we'll talk about why your brain struggles with English sometimes, how fluent speakers train their minds, daily habits that improve fluency faster, common mistakes learners make, and of course, we'll also give you real conversation practice that you can follow and repeat by yourself.
So, wherever you are right now, maybe you're walking, studying, relaxing, or practicing your listening skills, take a deep breath, relax your mind, and get ready to train your brain for better English fluency.
Let's get started.
All right, Julia, let's talk about one of the biggest frustrations English learners face. So many people say, Jason, I understand English when I listen, I understand grammar when I study, but when I try to speak, my mind becomes completely blank. Honestly, this is one of the most common problems in language learning.
Yes, absolutely. And the interesting thing is that this problem usually does not happen because learners are lazy or unintelligent. In fact, many learners work very hard. They memorize vocabulary, they watch videos, they read books, and they practice grammar exercises for hours. But the real issue is that their brains are not trained to use English naturally in real-time conversations.
That's such an important point. A lot of learners treat English like a school subject instead of a communication skill. They spend most of their time trying to remember grammar rules perfectly. But when someone suddenly asks them a simple question in English, their brain starts translating every word from their native language into English. And that process is very slow and stressful.
Exactly. Imagine your brain like a road. If you rarely use English for speaking, the road is weak and difficult to travel. But when you practice English daily, your brain slowly builds a faster and stronger connection. That's why fluent speakers don't translate every sentence in their minds. Their brains are already trained to react naturally in English.
And another big reason the brain freezes is fear. Many learners are afraid of making mistakes. They worry about pronunciation, grammar, or what other people will think. So before they speak, their brain starts overthinking everything. Instead of focusing on communication, they focus on being perfect.
Yes, and perfection is one of the biggest enemies of fluency. Fluent speakers are not perfect speakers. They simply continue speaking even when they make small mistakes. But beginners often stop themselves before even trying. Their brain becomes nervous, and nervous brains cannot speak smoothly.
And here's another truth many learners need to hear. Understanding English and speaking English are two different skills. Listening helps your brain recognize English, but speaking trains your brain to produce English quickly and confidently. If you don't practice speaking regularly, your brain never develops that automatic response.
Exactly. So if your brain freezes sometimes, don't think you are bad at English. It simply means your brain needs more speaking practice, more repetition, and more confidence training. Fluency is not magic. It's brain training.
And the good news is this: your brain can absolutely change and improve. No matter your level, you can train your mind to think faster, speak more naturally, and feel more confident in English conversations. So now the big question is this: what does it actually mean to train your brain for English fluency? A lot of learners hear this phrase, but they are not completely sure what it really means in daily life.
That's true. When we say train your brain, we simply mean teaching your mind to become familiar and comfortable with English through daily repetition, exposure, and active use. Just like your body becomes stronger with exercise, your brain becomes faster and more natural with English when you practice consistently.
Exactly. Think about your native language for a moment. You don't stop to translate simple sentences before speaking. You don't spend 5 minutes thinking about grammar rules when someone asks you a question. Your brain responds automatically because you have used that language thousands of times since childhood.
And that's the same process English learners need to build. Fluency happens when English starts becoming automatic in your brain. Instead of translating every idea from your native language, your brain slowly learns to think directly in English. That is one of the biggest signs of real progress.
Yes, at first, thinking in English feels difficult because your brain is not used to it. But the more you listen, read, speak, and repeat English every day, the more natural it becomes. Over time, your brain creates faster connections with English words, phrases, and expressions.
And here's something very important. Your brain learns best through repetition and emotion. If you study English one day and then stop for a week, your brain forgets very quickly. But when you practice a little every day, even 15 or 20 minutes, your brain starts treating English as an important part of your life.
That's why daily exposure matters so much. Listening to podcasts, repeating sentences, speaking out loud, reading simple English stories, and having small conversations all help train your brain step by step. You are not just learning information, you are building a new communication habit inside your mind.
Another important thing is that fluent English is usually learned in chunks or phrases, not only single words. For example, native speakers don't think word by word when they speak. Their brains remember complete expressions like, "How's it going?" "I'm really excited about that," or "What do you mean?" These phrases become automatic with repetition.
Exactly. So, training your brain for English fluency means creating automatic habits through daily practice, repetition, listening, speaking, and thinking in English. The goal is not to become perfect overnight. The goal is to help your brain feel relaxed, fast, and natural when using English.
And once your brain becomes familiar with English every day, speaking slowly becomes easier, smoother, and much more confident.
All right, now let's move into the most practical part of today's episode: daily brain training habits that can seriously improve your English fluency over time. The good news is that you do not need expensive courses or perfect grammar to train your brain. What you really need is consistency and smart practice every single day.
Exactly. And the first habit is simple but extremely powerful. Listen to English every day. Your brain learns languages by hearing them again and again. When you listen daily through podcasts, YouTube videos, interviews, or conversations, your brain slowly becomes familiar with English sounds, pronunciation, sentence patterns, and natural expressions.
Yes, and here's an important tip. Don't only listen passively. Try active listening. Pause the audio. Repeat sentences. Copy pronunciation. And notice how native speakers connect words together. This helps your brain understand real spoken English much faster.
And that brings us to the second habit. Speak out loud every day, even if you are alone. Many learners spend months only reading and listening, but fluency grows when your mouth and brain work together. You can describe your day, talk to yourself in English, repeat podcast sentences, or answer simple questions aloud.
Exactly. Your brain needs speaking practice to build speed and confidence. And another excellent method is something called shadowing. Shadowing means listening to a native speaker and repeating immediately after them with the same pronunciation, rhythm, and emotion. This trains your brain to respond faster in English.
Yes, shadowing is amazing because it improves listening, speaking, pronunciation, and confidence at the same time. Even 10 minutes of shadowing every day can make a big difference over time.
Another powerful habit is thinking in English during normal daily activities. For example, when you wake up in the morning, try saying simple thoughts in English like, I need to make breakfast, or today I have a busy schedule. At first it feels strange, but slowly your brain starts using English more naturally.
And one more important habit. Learn phrases, not only single words. Instead of memorizing one word alone, learn complete expressions and sentences. Your brain remembers language more easily when words are connected naturally.
Exactly. Small daily habits may seem simple, but when you repeat them consistently, your brain changes little by little. That's how real fluency is built not in one day, but through daily training and repetition.
Remember, every minute you spend actively using English is like exercise for your brain. The more you train it, the stronger and faster it becomes.
All right, everyone. Now it's time for some real-life English conversation practice. This part is very important because listening to natural conversations helps train your brain to understand and respond more quickly in English. So, Julia, let's imagine we're talking about daily routines and language learning habits.
Sounds good. So, Jason, what's one thing you do every day to improve your English skills?
Honestly, one thing I always try to do is listen to English while I'm doing simple activities like walking, cleaning my room, or drinking coffee. I've realized that daily exposure keeps my brain connected to the language.
That's true. I think consistency is much more important than studying for many hours one time and then stopping for several days. Even small daily practice can train the brain over time.
Exactly. And I also like speaking out loud when I'm alone. Sometimes I describe what I'm doing or talk about my plans for the day in English. It may sound funny, but it really helps me think faster.
I actually do the same thing. And I think many learners are afraid of speaking because they want every sentence to be perfect. But real fluency grows when you stop worrying too much and simply start using the language naturally.
Absolutely. Mistakes are a normal part of learning. When children learn a language, they make thousands of mistakes, but they continue speaking anyway. That's how the brain improves.
And another helpful thing is repeating useful phrases again and again. When your brain hears and uses the same expressions many times, speaking becomes more automatic and less stressful.
Yes, exactly. Fluency is not about speaking perfectly. It's about communicating clearly and confidently, little by little every day.
And the more your brain practices English in real situations, the easier conversations become over time.
Now let's talk about some very common mistakes that stop English learners from becoming fluent faster. And honestly, almost every learner makes these mistakes at some point, so don't feel bad if some of these sound familiar.
Absolutely. One of the biggest mistakes is waiting to become perfect before speaking. Many learners think, I need better grammar or I need more vocabulary first. But fluency does not come from waiting. Fluency comes from practicing, making mistakes, and learning through real communication.
Exactly. Another mistake is focusing too much on grammar and not enough on speaking and listening. Grammar is important, of course, but if your brain never practices real conversations, it becomes difficult to speak naturally in real situations.
And many learners also study English only sometimes instead of building a daily habit. Your brain learns languages through repetition. Even 15 or 20 minutes of daily English practice is more powerful than studying one long day every week.
Another common mistake is translating every sentence from your native language into English. This makes speaking slow and stressful. Instead, try to think in simple English phrases little by little every day.
And finally, many learners compare themselves to other people. But everyone learns at a different speed. The most important thing is to focus on your own progress and continue practicing consistently.
Exactly. Small improvement every day is what creates real fluency over time. Before we finish today's episode, we want to remind you of something very important. Learning English is not a race. You do not need to become fluent in 1 week or 1 month. Real fluency is built slowly, through patience, consistency, and daily practice. Every small step you take is helping your brain grow stronger in English.
Exactly. Sometimes learners feel discouraged because they still make mistakes or they cannot speak perfectly yet. But remember, these mistakes are not signs of failure. Mistakes are signs that you are learning, practicing, and pushing yourself forward. Every fluent speaker you admire today was once a beginner too.
And one of the biggest mindset changes you can make is this. Stop focusing on perfection and start focusing on progress. If you can understand a little more today, speak a little faster today, or feel a little more confident today, that is real improvement.
Yes. Trust the process and trust your brain. The more English you listen to, speak, repeat, and use every day, the more natural it will become. Your brain is always learning, even when progress feels slow.
So keep showing up every day, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself. Fluency is possible for you too. All right, let's quickly summarize everything we talked about today. First, we learned that your brain freezes in English mainly because it is not trained for real-time speaking, and it often tries to translate everything instead of thinking naturally in English.
Then we understood what it really means to train your brain for English. It means building daily habits like listening, speaking, repeating phrases, and thinking in English so that the language becomes automatic in your mind, not something you translate word by word.
We also talked about powerful daily habits like listening every day, speaking out loud, shadowing native speakers, and learning useful phrases. These small actions train your brain step by step to become faster and more confident in English.
And we saw common mistakes too, like waiting for perfection, overthinking grammar, and not practicing daily. The truth is, fluency comes from action, not perfection.
So here's our final advice for you. Don't just study English, live with English a little every day. Even small practice can create big change over time.
Keep going, stay consistent, and trust your brain it is stronger than you think.
All right, everyone. That brings us to the end of today's episode. Now it's your turn. Don't just listen. Take action. Start training your brain today. Even 10 to 15 minutes of daily English practice can slowly change the way you think and speak.
Yes, and we would love to hear from you. Tell us in the comments, what is your biggest struggle in speaking English? Is it fear, lack of vocabulary, or thinking too slowly? Your answer will help us create better episodes for you.
If you found this episode helpful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the English Learning Podcast so you don't miss the next lesson.
Keep practicing, stay consistent, and remember your English journey is just getting started.
Goodbye, and see you in the next episode.